Welcome, everyone. Hello. My name is Steve Barnes, Communications Director for the Attorney General of New Jersey. We're going to start in a couple of minutes if folks want to please take their seats. Welcome. Today we'll be hearing from the following speakers: Acting Attorney General Matthew J. Platkin. We're hearing from Commissioner of the Department of Environmental Protection, Sean LaTourette. Okay. All right, I'll bellow. We have a live stream, so I don't want to blow people's ears out on the live stream. So we'll also hear from Chief Vincent Mann. He's Turtle Clan Chief of the Ramapo Lenape Nation. So I'll just come out and say it. So, folks, we're going to start in a couple of minutes. We'll hear from Acting Attorney General Matthew J. Platkin. We'll hear from Sean LaTourette of the Department of Environmental Protection.
Morning. Thanks everybody for being here. Glad the weather held up for us. This is truly an important announcement. I want to first say I'm honored to stand behind D-Side DEP Commissioner Sean LaTourette. He'll speak in a few moments, as well as, of course, Chief Vincent Mann, who leads the Turtle Clan of the Ramapo Lenape Nation. Today, Commissioner LaTourette and I are announcing a lawsuit against Ford Motor Company. Ford has knowingly polluted and contaminated the precious environmental resources of this community here in Ringwood, New Jersey, which include Native American lands, historic Native American lands. This hazardous waste has contaminated the soil, the very ground upon which this community stands. It's contaminated their groundwater, harmed the wetlands and vegetation here, and polluted the air that they breathe, altogether preventing the use of this land for far too long. This lawsuit comes after decades of negligence and numerous efforts to hold the polluters accountable. Beginning in 1967, when Ford disposed thousands of tons of toxic paint sludge in the forest and the grounds of Ringwood mines, to 1970, when Ford donated 290 acres of this site to Ringwood Borough without disclosing the toxic mess that they had made. To 1995, 1998, and then again in 2004, when new pockets of paint sludge and harmful substances were discovered and DEP testing revealed lead and arsenic in the soil. To 2019, when Ford was ordered to pay the state $2.1 million and to further perform cleanup here. Today we're announcing new litigation in which we're seeking compensation for natural resource damages, which include harms to the air, soil, groundwater, surface water, wetlands, and vegetation, all of which threatens human health, as well as the wildlife and the ecosystem of this great community. The bottom line is that Ford demonstrated little to no regard for the environment. They turned a blind eye to the risks that their actions have imposed on the lives of 200 residents who live here, which include Native Americans who are historically and disproportionately exposed to environmental harms, as well as the many more health impacts that they've suffered. This directly implicates the environmental justice laws that the governor and the commissioner have implemented. And let me be clear, no one who violates our laws will do so without consequence. Not even the biggest and most powerful corporations, including Ford Motor Company. If they do, we will hold them accountable and we will make them pay, just as we are doing today, not only because our environment demands protection, but also because every New Jersey resident, regardless of their race, where they live, their income, they all deserve to live in a clean and a safe community. I want to thank the Department of Environmental Protection, the Commissioner, and his entire team for their work in addressing pollution caused by Ford here in Ringwood Mines, as well as for ensuring that no one in New Jersey undermines our environmental laws. I'll now turn it over to Commissioner Sean LaTourette.
Good afternoon, everyone. So thank you, General, for your and your team's incredible work. Right? While I have the honor and the privilege of serving as the state's Commissioner of Environmental Protection, the important work of protecting our environment and public health, it's work that no one of us can do alone. You need incredible partners like you, General, and the attorneys within the Office of the Attorney General and the Division of Law, our outside counsel, Al Anthony, and his team, our Deputy Commissioner, Sean Moriarty, and our legal advisor, Mr. Mike Gordon, and so many others who have dutifully evaluated this case. So thank you for the action, General, that you thoughtfully evaluated and wholeheartedly brought today, for the work that your office, quite frankly, does every single day to protect the environment we share. I think today's action represents another step down the path that Governor Murphy has carved the last 4 years toward restoring damaged natural resources and cultural resources throughout the state, and doing so with an eye toward greater equity and justice, because the truth is, even under the best circumstances, when a contaminated site is identified and ultimately remediated, the focus is often placed on stemming the bleeding, cutting off the sources of pollution, for example, but not fully removing it. Effectively, we stabilize the patients and expect them to recover on their own. And while the environment can sometimes recover, it doesn't always recover by itself. The damage is done to the land, to the air, to the water, to the wetlands, to our cultural resources, our historic resources, our open spaces, like that are in and around the Ringwood site. They all need our help to fully recover. And those who cause their injury, as the General said, must be held accountable. And that is what we're doing today. We're calling for this responsible party to stand up and to be accountable to our environment and, critically, to the people who rely upon it. You know, the Commissioner of Environmental Protection isn't just a head of a government agency or an advisor to the governor on policy. In New Jersey, the Commissioner and the DEP have a sacred duty, a duty to hold every single natural resource of this state in trust for its people, all of its people. Because our air, our land, our water, our natural and wild spaces, our fish, our wildlife, they don't belong to the government, to the governor, to me, to the DEP, or the 3,000 plus environmental professionals who've made the protection of our environment the cause of our lives. These natural resources belong to the people. It's just our job to take good care of them for you. And I think we have to acknowledge, as the general did, that as Governor Murphy and our legislature established in 2020, when we enacted the most empowering environmental justice law in the nation, that for too long, low-income, Black, brown, and indigenous communities have borne a disproportionate amount of the pollution that we all together create. It's an environmental injustice that we must right. Not by wishing it so, but through our intentionality, through our action. There's no doubt in my mind that the people of the Ramapo Lenape Nation, the Turtle Clan in particular, have borne a disproportionate burden from the pollution created at the Ringwood Mine site. Chief Mann, you and I met shortly after my confirmation last year at a meeting convened by Congressman Frank Pallone and the new administrator of the EPA, the federal EPA, Michael Regan, for a roundtable about environmental justice. And I committed to you then that we would evaluate natural resource injuries at the Ringwood Mine site and that we would confer with our Attorney General about the possibility of legal action. That is what we're here to further today. And again, AG, I say thank you. And Chief Mann, I'll not stand here. I'll not stand here and pretend that this action alone will right the wrongs foisted upon your community or your ancestors. But I will say that I am sorry. I'm sorry that for too long folks did not stand tall enough for you and for your people. But our governor, this AG, this DEP, we will do our very best. Our commitment to you is our commitment to every New Jerseyan, that we will chart a new course toward the future with a just environment at its center, where we will treat the environmental challenges upon any community as a challenge to our entire New Jersey community, because the truth is that we only do this together. So thank you, Chief Mann, for shining a light, for demanding action.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's now my honor to introduce Chief Mann, say a few words. I echo the Commissioner's remarks. We're honored to partner with you in this effort and to do what we can to right some of the wrongs inflicted on this community. Chief Mann.
First of all, it's my personal belief that a leader is somebody who leads from beneath their people, somebody who holds their community, no matter how small or how large, above themselves. There are no heroes here. There's only truth and fact and a path forward. Today is one of those days that we'll remember when the state of New Jersey and the AG, the governor, understand the impact of our community, that they understand the loss of not just our families, but the loss of our lands, not just for the last 58 years, but since the first mine was stripped. Our community has been here 12,000 years in this very spot. So much so that we're a part of this fabric of this land. And as my Aunt Vivian Baugh said, you know, we are America. When you look back and you see the Ramapo-Lenape Nation and the Turtle Clan, you should be seeing America. You should be proud that these Native Americans, the descendants of the Munsee-speaking people, are still here, that they're still resilient enough to be standing. Like a blade of grass, when you step on it and it bends over, how it comes back. Because it's that memory, it's those roots that bind it to the earth. The actions against Ford today are probably only one of many actions that will take place. To hold people accountable, not just here in the state of New Jersey, but across this country, where indigenous people begin to have more of a voice, where the leadership of other states and other towns and other places around the world begin to listen to the indigenous people, to understand that the harm that is caused to these lands are not just harms to the indigenous people or the poor people or the people who don't have, but it in fact will poison even their own children. And when they come to see us, and when we're sitting face to face across the table, and when they can imagine that their children have played in that and lived in that and ate those vegetables and ate those animals and the fish, of what harm could come to their children, maybe then they'll look back upon our community, this resilient indigenous community who has stood here in the face of all adversity, all promises that have been made by so many people, that this is the last time that we have to hear a promise. This is the day of action. Today I brought this belt. This is a belt, one of many. This is actually the Nichols Treaty Belt. Some of you here today actually held this a few weeks ago. And the reason why I brought this here, because it's very important to understand that in 1758, the Ramapo's ancestors, the Munsee-speaking people, were a party to the Treaty of Easton. And in that Treaty of Easton, we kept for ourselves the right to hunt, the right to fish, the right to gather, and the right to strip bark from trees, which were used to hold cover over our homes, that Peter Hasenclever wrote to his wife in 1764, 6 years after the Treaty of Easton, knowing that that was not a removal document, but it was a document that we had in an agreement with the colonial New Jersey that became a state. In fact, that Treaty of Easton is law of the land. It is what dictates to everyone, the state, the Attorney General, the Governor, the Congress of the United States, and the President. Those are the things that we're supposed to go back to, the things that never change, the things that are the same. It's as resilient as we are. So that's what this treaty represents. This treaty here, that's what the Nichols Treaty represented, and that's what the Treaty of Easton represented, and that's what this treaty here today represents. We brought this here today so that it can bear witness to the testimony that you guys provide, that not just the ears of our community get to hear. And I'm sure, just like myself, you know, if we could pick you up and throw you, that would be probably as far as we can actually put our trust into that at this time. And it's understandable, right? It's just truth and fact. And as these days go forward, I'm sure that we'll begin to heal not just ourselves, not just our environment, not just where we live, not just the air or the water that millions of people in the state of New Jersey rely on, like the Wanacue Reservoir. But we'll be able to heal that relationship, that government-to-government relationship that we now enjoy with the state of New Jersey as an officially state-recognized tribe. With that, you know, I just truly am honored to be a part of your family. I'm truly honored to be able to represent, even though sometimes I don't necessarily represent everybody's voices. I apologized last night. I apologize today in front of the world that I am your servant, that I will never hold myself above any of you. And it's my goal and intention that the state of New Jersey will never do that ever again either. Thank you.
time for a few questions.
Attorney General, I guess my main question here is, this kind of action is something that I know the residents of Upper Ringwood and the tribe have been asking for a long time. So what took the state so long?
Yeah, and Commissioner, if you want to come up too, Chief. Look, what we're doing today, what we're announcing today is a natural resource damage claim. These claims are brought towards the end or at the end of the remediation. What we're seeking is the restoration, restoration of the land back to where it was before the damage was incurred. These claims tend to happen. The claims we're announcing today tend to happen after remediation is substantially complete or towards substantial completion. But of course, there's been a long history of action here. There's no denying that this has taken far too long for the people of the Ramapo Lenape Nation. I acknowledge and everything that the chief has said, but what we're doing today is a timely action in light of what the law allows, and we're going to seek the maximum damages and penalties that we can seek under the law. Commissioner, do you want to?
Yeah, I'd echo that and add only that natural resource damage claims are a distinct legal principle from a site remediation case. In this instance, a hazardous cleanup that is led by EPA and not by the state of New Jersey, and we have limited control with respect to the pacing of remedial efforts. But what we do control as the trustee of natural resources is the ability to assess and chart a course toward an action like this. And that does take time. NRD cases are very difficult, and we had to put it together right. I believe that has been done for us by the AG and his team and our external counsel as well. And this takes time to pursue. It won't be resolved tomorrow. They take sometimes years, but we will get there.
I would get you real quick, Sean. I would just note the state launched under the governor's leadership and Attorney General's office NRD action in 2018. It was the first time in over a decade that we've filed an NRD claim. This is the 18th NRD action that we filed in our administration. As the commissioner said, these are tough cases. I want to thank every member of our department that has worked tirelessly to bring this case to the point where we can file a complaint. But we're going to aggressively litigate them, and I thank our outside counsel partners as well. But they are difficult cases, and they do take time.
After the Exxon case, there was a lot of conversation in the legislature about codifying NRD, a schema for calculating the price tag for NRD cases in the law. Have you guys had any, do you have an initial estimate here? How do you come up with a price tag?
We don't have an initial estimate on this claim. That'll be, we'll evaluate that as we go through the litigation process. And the reason for that is because we need to see the full scope of the damages, but rest assured we're going to seek the maximum amount of damages we can seek, as well as penalties. So I don't have a number for you today.
Could the commissioner maybe just walk me through the process for how that?
Sure.
Sure. No, I appreciate the question, and it harkens back to the post Exxon settlement under the Christie administration, after which there was a constitutional amendment to dedicate NRD recoveries, but that doesn't get to the point of assessment. What some in the regulated community wanted to see was the development of some sort of magic formula that would price the value of a natural resource as though it were a tire. That's not possible, right? And so the spate of damages here are extensive, right? And how you calculate a damage will depend upon the function of a wetland, what it's serving, what it's doing, because every natural resource is doing something for us. In fact, something that if degraded, the public would otherwise have to pay for, right? Because the wetlands filter our drinking water for example. So it's very complicated. And I think the suggestion made that there should be some magic formula tied up in the legislature so that perhaps we don't act.
Hi, I'm a resident. By the way, I'm a resident. My question to you is, years ago, you wouldn't support us. Not you particularly, but the government. Now all of a sudden, the government's here and wants to help us. What percentage of that money that you're suing for is going to go to my community? And what do you plan to do with my community? Because my community is my life. My parents, my life, everything. And I want to know, and we want a voice, not just Chief Man. The homeowners, the elders there would like a voice. And we want to be informed in everything that's going on, not from the outside world. And I feel if you are suing for us, the community, or whatever, for your natural damages, what's to say when you're out of office, the next people are going to say, oh, throw it to the back of the line because there are so many people ahead of us.
Yeah. The question. So first of all, thank you for being here, and I'm sorry for everything you've gone through. I can't.
I forgive, but I do not forget.
Yeah.
That's what my grandmother always said. So for me to trust the state, as my opinion, is very hard. We've been shit on and everything else, excuse my French, and now you're here offering this. So for my purposes, we all have questions, and that's my question.
Yeah. Yeah. So I can't speak for the state going back prior to our tenure, but the commissioner mentioned the 2017 amendment. Damages that flow from this case, when we do collect our damages, now constitutionally, so the legislature can't change that without a pretty difficult process, constitutionally flow to a natural resource damages fund, gets appropriated by the legislature, but there's a priority order to how that money's spent, and the top priority has to be to the people and location where the damages were incurred. So you have a constitutional protection now that didn't exist prior to 2017 that will ensure that when we do collect money in connection with this litigation, that money flows back to the people in the environment that was damaged. So
The state holds that money in trust, or does it go to the community?
that's what I'm saying. So it gets appropriated out. This is not done through our department. It gets appropriated out through a constitutionally dedicated program, and it has to go, as long as there is a need, to the priority areas that were impacted. So, yeah.
So I guess any money collected could go, first of all, for cleanup, and also to the residents.
So I want to properly characterize this. Number one, it is on us to earn your trust, and we will. The way that this type of case unfolds, a natural resource damage case, it is not about the cleanup, right? The cleanup is proceeding with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. They must ensure the protectiveness of the cleanup. What we are able to do as a matter of state law is to pursue the recovery of the natural resource that has been injured all this time, right? So think about it like you're in a car accident and you're put out of work. There is one set of legal remedies for you to get your car fixed, and there's another set of remedies that would help you during your time of injury. What we're talking about here is that time of injury. And it is constitutionally required, as the AG said, that those funds that we recover go first and foremost to the environment. It's not people, it's the environment, right? It is the environment we are looking to recover for. And the environment is owned by people, not by the government, right? And so our first priority is to identify ways to restore your environment. And we need you to tell us how best to do that.
Any last questions?
Excuse me. Hi. My name is Angel. I've lived on this land for 22 years. I have a question. Can you promise my children, my great-grandchildren, and everybody else a future? Because I've lived on contaminated land my whole life. I ended up very sick from it. and I want to know if it's capability that you guys can take responsibility. I'm asking, are you really going to fix this problem? Or are you going to be like everyone else where you say you're going to fix our problem, and then my generation, my kids, my nieces, my nephews that play in that dirt every day have to suffer like the rest of us did? And I truly want to know, are you going to give my ancestors back their land the way that it was supposed to be? Where I'm allowed to run barefoot, I'm allowed to scream, I'm allowed to pray, I'm allowed to beat my drum. I want to know if you guys are going to protect our sacred land, because I cannot live like that. And I want to know if you genuinely can protect my land and give it back to the way it was thousands of years ago when my ancestors walked that land barefoot. I want to walk barefoot. I want my mother, my grandmothers, I want my grandkids, I want everyone to walk barefoot. Can you please promise me you're going to fix our land? Because I want to be there for the rest of my life. I don't want to go nowhere. I was born there, I'm going to die there, and I want to make sure that my land for the future, for my family, my friends, everyone, is going to be protected. I want my peace too. So can you guys promise me that my future, and that you are going to find a mission to clean this up?
So first of all, I'm so sorry for everything that you've been through.
Listen, 22 years is a long time to watch my uncles, my parents, my grandparents. I lost my grandmother to cancer. What is on our land is taking our family left and right, and I don't want to see it anymore. It's not fair. I'm 22 years old, and I suffer with a list of chronic illnesses because of what has been done to me. For the rest of my life, I am scarred because of someone else's actions. And if you guys can fix that action and make it reversible, I would give anything. I would give my arm to live a normal life again. It is so hard living in that area. They're constantly digging. They're constantly moving stuff. There's so many people now that are sick. If there is a way that you guys can properly go about it, without loopholes, without lies, without all this false accusation, I want the truth. If you can, please fix it.
So there's nothing we're going to be able to do that rights every wrong that you've suffered. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. Your family members and your friends who have been injured and hurt, there's no way to bring them back.
Course, no.
But what we're denouncing today is that we're using the full power of our law. As the commissioner said, this isn't just about restoring the land. It's about collecting for the damages caused to the land itself, and to get it back, the restoration of the land to what it was before the damage was incurred. So, Commissioner.
I'll always be honest. And I'll tell you that sometimes it's not possible to put things back exactly as they were. But we always push in cases like this to get as close to it as we possibly can. That's our job. And you have my promise that we will do that job. And we will keep you informed, and you will be a part of it.
I just want to make sure that I can live a life like a normal person. Like I said, for 22 years I've watched them come in and just cycle through, and every time, like my aunt said, we're always thrown to the back of the line, and enough's enough. Someone has to stand in and say, all right, that's it. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time out to try to help us.
We will do our very best for you.
And I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for being here today. Chief, thank you. And to all the residents, thank you for being here and recognize how difficult and damaging this has been. But we're here today to announce an action against Ford Motor Company for the damage they caused, and to hopefully, as we said, right some of the wrongs. So thank you all. Commissioner, thank you, your team, to our councils, and to Chief, to you and all of people you represent. Thanks, everybody.